So the point being, because the more serious crimes, he was acquitted on the more serious crimes, that opens the window that the Trump administration now feels it wouldn't be as bad to, there wouldn't be as much backlash to pardon him?
It's part of it.
They weren't just two celebrities orbiting the same high society galaxy, Donald Trump and Sean Diddy. Combs were staples at the same velvetrope enclaves, clinking glasses at charity galas, sharing banquets at Manhattan's Hardest restaurants, and exchanging knowing nods across dimly lit tables where champagne flowed without end. Trump publicly applauded Diddy's grind. Diddy admired Trump's flair for commanding a room. For years they were seen as parallel power players, different industries, same mastery of spectacle. That's why their fallout landed like a thunderclap.
I was very friendly with him. I got along with him great. And seemed like a nice guy. I didn't know him well. But when I ran for office, he was very hostile.
He said some not so nice things about you, sir.
Yeah, and it's hard, you know, like you, we're human beings.
Right.
And we don't like to have things cloud our judgment, right? But when you knew someone and you were fine, and then you run for office and he made some terrible statements.
These smiles and public praise have been replaced with a snub so pointed it's dominating headlines on both the political and entertainment circuits. Trump isn't just refusing to help his former acquaintances, signaling he'd welcome the stiffest sentence possible for the hip-hop mogul. Now facing up to 2 decades in prison on transportation forepay charges, his remarks on Newsacts carried that unmistakable mix of personal payback and political theater. It makes it more difficult to do, he said, recalling Diddy's past jabs about removing him from office. Translation: an old friendship is turned into a vendetta, and Trump appears eager to play executioner. For those who remember the playful exchanges between them, the about-face feels like a pure political soap opera. Not long ago, the Bad Boy Records founder still popped up in Trump's interviews, part of that glittering overlap between rap royalty and Trump's reality star turned president image. But when Diddy started using his platform to torch Trump, declaring in 2020 that white men like Trump should be banished, the frost set in fast. Trump heard it, no question, and seemed to file it away like ammunition. And then there's the murkier back-channel twist. Industry whispers claim Trump's hardline stance isn't just payback for political insults, but part of a so-called revenge pact tied to
And then what's the stuff that's happening with Wendy Williams? You think this is all connection to? Of course!
Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie. Her bombshell allegations of abuse and coercion helped set off the dominoes that led to federal charges. Trump, insiders say, saw an opening publicly. He could frame it as standing with victims. Privately, it looked like a chance to take a rival off the board. Whether that's a moral awakening or a calculated strike is anyone's guess. The rumor mill doesn't stop there. Some link Trump's refusal to even consider a pardon to what's been dubbed the Epstein factor. There's no confirmed evidence Diddy ever attended Jeffrey Epstein's notorious gatherings, but the similarities in the headlines are enough to fuel speculation. In politics and power, perception can be as lethal as proof, and in this saga, both seem to be in play. 2 scandals both steeped in hushed allegations of leverage, decadent parties, and celebrity guest lists have conspiracy boards running hot. Trump himself has been shadowed for years by whispers about Epstein, so his sudden distance now, paired with an eagerness to see Diddy hit with a maximum penalty, feels less like neutrality and more like a signal. Whatever people think they know about those gatherings, Diddy will be left to weather them alone. The irony is hard to miss. This is the same Donald Trump who has wiped clean the records of political allies, overturned convictions, and railed against what he calls a crooked justice system. Yet,
if the
in
judge,
October, right.
in October 3rd, if the judge denies bail, then Trump is going to make a decision possibly immediately thereafter.
Most likely, the judge is going to, based on previous decisions, it feels like the judge.
Here stands a former friend, guilty on paper, but with courtroom scenes far smaller than the rumors swirling online, and instead of extending a hand, Trump seems to be choreographing the perfect act of political retribution. It has the trappings of theater, the one-time Apprentice host slipping into the role of judge and jury, passing sentence on a man who once stood beside him in bespoke suits and mirrored shades. The timing only fans the flames. Days before Trump dug in on keeping Diddy behind bars, the Justice Department abruptly shut the door on releasing more Epstein files, claiming no damning client list existed. That didn't stop the speculation. The parallels between the two sagas are too neat for some to dismiss, both involving high-profile men accused of masterminding over-the-top invite-only indulgence, both cases fizzling with fewer consequences than the public expected, both trailing a fog of unanswered questions. The difference: Diddy still has a sentencing date looming, and Trump has a hand on the lever. Then there's the drama.
Diddy will create another Epstein for him. It would be a nightmare. And last and certainly not least, the GOP is already struggling with female voters. And they're not all lefties. There are young conservative women who aren't in love with Trump or MAGA. There are. And this will not help. It's very clear. We all saw the videotape of him beating the hell out of
in the prosecutorial ranks. Maureen Comey, daughter of Trump's most infamous FBI adversary, was abruptly removed from her post after working on both the Diddy and Epstein cases. Her parting words warned of power warped by fear and justice bent to serve agendas. Whether that was mere coincidence or deliberate maneuvering, the optics were jet fuel on an already blazing fire of suspicion about who's making decisions and why. When Trump talks about declassifying everything on Epstein while refusing even a gesture of leniency toward Diddy, the boundaries between justice, vengeance, and image control dissolve. The stakes for Trump go beyond personal grievance. This is about legacy. His supporters see in this a leader unwilling to bend for old friends if the law points another way. Critics, though, see the selective hand of mercy, questioning why some allies walk free while others, like Diddy, are left to twist. For Diddy, the betrayal cuts both ways. His fight for freedom is now tangled in a political blood feud that shows no signs of cooling, and it leaves a nagging question. Was Trump ever truly a friend?
We once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
Or was this scene always written, waiting for the moment their ambitions collided? The glossy photographs of their better days now read like stills from a setup, a prelude, a twist no one dared predict. With October's sentencing inching closer, the parallels to Epstein's downfall grow harder to ignore. Both men rose from nothing to build empires and climbed into the rarefied air of billionaires' clubs where presidents, royals, and Hollywood stars mingled over sealed-door dinners. Both cultivated an aura of untouchable influence, surrounded by beautiful people and ironclad privacy. And both, in the end, wound up under the cold lights of federal courtrooms. Their celebrity turned into exhibit. That Diddy's conviction came within days of the administration's decision to lock away the Epstein files was all conspiracy. Theorists needed coincidence or calculated diversion. Some in the entertainment world privately suggest Diddy's courtroom drama served as a perfect distraction from the White House's pivot on Epstein. The Justice Department's memo, declaring there was no incriminating client roster, landed like a slap for those.
Look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at. He has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much. But what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war.
Promised transparency. While the media feasted on Diddy's verdict, the unexplained gaps in Epstein's cell footage were waved away with talk of faulty cameras. The symmetry is unnerving. Two powerful men accused of curating forbidden gatherings for the elite, both walking away with less accountability than expected, and both leaving behind questions that refuse to die. And threaded through it all is the abrupt firing of Maureen Comey, a prosecutor who wasn't just a name on the roster but a player with an inside view of both cases, steering through the murkiest channels of the Epstein investigation while also pressing charges in the Diddy case. Then, without warning or public justification, she's out. The next day, she sends a pointed message to former colleagues, a warning that fear is the weapon of tyrants, urging them not to let that fear steer their work. You don't need a tinfoil hat to ask the obvious question. What did she stumble across that made her disposable? Her last name has been a sore point for Trump ever since he ousted her father from the FBI, and this White House has a track record of quietly swapping out prosecutors tied to investigations the president finds inconvenient. Layer in the volatile mix of sealed Epstein records and active civil suits against Diddy, and you've got optics that practically glow radioactive. If Comey had
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about.
Uncovered overlapping threads, shared guest lists, mutual associates, financial links between the two scandals. Her exit may have been less about partisanship and more about containment. But containment of what, exactly? That's the kind of question that rattles around in the minds of insiders long after the news cycle moves on. For months, political operatives have murmured about something they call the pardon list, an unofficial mental catalog of big-name figures whose legal troubles could be dangled in front of the press whenever the administration needed to yank the national spotlight elsewhere. On the surface, Trump's musings about clemency for Diddy or Ghislaine Maxwell sounded scattered, even impulsive. But to those who've tracked his media habits, it looked calculated. In this theory, the pardons were never meant to happen. were bait, a controlled detonation designed to flare bright enough to dominate headlines, then vanish before anything tangible could follow. Each time Trump floated one of those names, it was like tossing a match into a room thick with gasoline, vapor, and watching the commentary explode. The names weren't chosen for their legal merits, but for their power to pull public focus, ensuring that deeper, more damaging questions stayed.
I'm gonna tell you why 50 is literally a diabolical genius, and he's
buried. The most telling detail, the timing. Maxwell pardon chatter spiked just as Attorney General Pam Bondi backpedaled on earlier promises to make Epstein's files public. The week Trump seemed to flirt with helping Diddy was the same week critics were demanding answers about the missing minute of Epstein cell footage. The alignment raises a troubling possibility. These pardon teasers weren't random at all, but part of a deliberate distraction strategy, using the magnetic pull of celebrity scandal to shield the administration from inquiries it couldn't afford to answer. If that's true, then the pardon list wasn't a mercy ledger, it was a smokescreen. Each time a famous name was dangled before the cameras, the public's attention was diverted from the structural question who in the halls of power had actually crossed paths with Epstein to a simpler, safer debate. Would Trump, or wouldn't he, sign the paper? A tidy yes or no hook tailor-made for talk shows and panel debates. While the real story slipped deeper into the shadows, yet it neatly pulls the public's eyes away from the tangled web of connections a full, unfiltered investigation might expose. And that's the genius.
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people for sure on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So, do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? And of course not. Of course.
Yes, and the danger of the tactic. By dangling something as emotionally charged as a celebrity pardon, Trump may have ensured the most combustible pieces of the Epstein saga never ignited into a national firestorm if the theory is right. The pardon list wasn't about rewarding friends or intimidating foes, it was about turning public attention into a chess piece, moved exactly where it needed to be, exactly when it served him best. Whispers persist that hidden deep in the Epstein archives, or sealed away in Diddy's court testimony, are names and stories that could incinerate reputations in Hollywood, Wall Street, and Capitol Hill alike. Trump's defenders insist he's simply acting with restraint, protecting innocent people from collateral damage. His critics counter that innocent becomes a very elastic word when the person defining it is also deciding who walks free and who rots in a cell. And if Diddy knows anything about the connections everyone's murmuring about, the clock is running out on how long.
We haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic,
He can keep that knowledge bottled up. This is where the stakes leap from grudge match to survival mode. Federal sentencing isn't kind, and October's date is carved in stone. A man staring down decades might decide his last bargaining chip is to open the vault, naming names, recalling places, and detailing events the public has only guessed at. If even half the chatter about his proximity to Epstein-linked circles is accurate, his testimony could detonate carefully guarded alliances, pulling into the light people who have spent years dodging subpoenas. The shockwaves wouldn't stop at the entertainment. Industry's edge they could slam into corporate boardrooms and political command centers, but talking comes with its own hazards. The Epstein case is littered with spooked witnesses, vanished documents, and timelines that bent conveniently out of shape. Diddy sits on the kind of insider knowledge that would guarantee front-page coverage worldwide and draw the ire of adversaries who play a ruthless game. With Trump publicly framing him as unworthy of clemency, the safety net that high-level connections usually provide has been cut away. If there's a bigger strategy unfolding here, Diddy may be waking up to the fact that in this match, the king is willing to sacrifice him. So here we are staring at a volatile cocktail, a president who never forgets a slight, a disgrace.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on?
Mogul with a history of keeping receipts, and a prosecutor possibly pushed out before she could connect the final threads. The pieces are moving, but the full picture remains out of focus. The question that hangs in the air is as dangerous as it is simple. If Diddy talks, does he only bring down his own empire, or does the blast tear through Trump, the Epstein network, and the untouchable few who've managed to keep their names out of the light? Drop your thoughts below. And remember, sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free. It sets the...
About the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done...
Entire stage ablaze. Stay sharp, stay curious. Until next time.